What is up, everybody? Welcome here to the Devy YouTube channel. Today, we got a fun one for you. We're going to be looking at 2024 mock with landing spots already predetermined. So what I did is I went through a Sports Illustrated mock through the first 4 rounds, looked at who they drafted. Now, we went with guys that were in the mock, right? There's a few guys that are omitted from my big board. They're just not going to be in here. That's just the nature of these things as we get into this process in December. So if you don't see a player that you like not drafted, don't yell at us. If they just weren't in the mock, you can yell at us if you don't like when they were drafted. So we're going to be diving in. We're going to be looking at landing spots. I'm going to do a little bit of player profiles, kind of highlight some guys that I think are going to be moving up. And would we like those spots where they were drafted if that was to play out in April? So that's what we're going to be looking at here on this video. It's a lot of fun. Hit that like and subscribe button. All right, let's get into it. Look at our guy there, Marvin Harrison Jr., going to the Cardinals. Now, let's dive into it. So, up in the corner right, you'll see where they were drafted. In this instance, they drafted Caleb Williams, the Bears did, instead of keeping Justin Fields. That was the interesting part of it. In the comments, what do you guys think? Do you think that they should do that? Do you think Caleb Williams is the next guy up for the Chicago Bears, or do you think they should ride with Justin Fields, right? This last weekend, we saw Justin Fields, the terrible drop from Robert Tonyan, probably should have won that game. Darnell Mooney had a terrible game. Is it Justin Fields' fault, or is it just time for Caleb Williams to kind of step in there? He's pretty much been the one-on-one for the foreseeable future, right? We've seen Caleb Williams pretty good go at the spot for almost 2 years now. So there's really no change there. But would you like him on the Bears, I think, is the bigger question. At the 102, we had kind of a surprise. We had New England drafting Drake May, and he was going 102 here. Now, would that give you would you feel like that landing spot makes it worth not drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. there, right? If you're sitting at the 102 and you're a QB needy team, do you maybe move back? Do you draft Drake May? Do you just take best player on the board, which is probably Marvin Harrison Jr.? How do you feel about that? Do you like the New England spot if Bill Belichick isn't there, right? If they decide to move on, maybe they get Ben Johnson, some of these other guys. What, are you comfortable with that? I think there's a lot of question marks there, but I do know some people like Jaden Daniels more than Drake May. So this was a little bit of I don't know if to say it was a shock because he's pretty much been a top 3 consensus pick, but would you be able to take him over Marvin Harrison Jr.? At 103, you have Marvin Harrison Jr. Go to the Cardinals. He's pretty much been mocked there since, we started doing all these mocks in terms of industry mocks. I think it's a fun fit with Kyler Murray, with Marquise Brown. Trey McBride's really come on, and they take a running back in this mock as well, building around that offense. If you believe Murray can be the guy, I love the fact that Marvin Harrison Jr. is there. I mean, he's pretty much quarterback proof for the most part. He's a talented wide receiver. You have to love that about him. So 103 is probably the floor for him if he doesn't go at the 102. 104, we had our second wide receiver off the board. Malik Neighbors getting drafted by the Saints. He's actually the third wide receiver taken in the draft that we used. But going at 104, do you believe in that talent? Do you like that fit with Olave there with Derek Carr? Are we concerned about that? What will look like that? What will that offense look like moving forward? Kamara maybe moving on. Maybe Taysom Hill at some point, right? So Malik Neighbors kind of being the alpha to Olave, right? And kind of being that outside threat. Could be a lot of fun, but I think that quarterback play concerns you a little bit. Would that be a hesitation for you guys to draft him there? Next guy is Brock Bowers going to Tennessee. I see them mocked a lot, a tight end in that spot. And I understand, hey, taking the best player available and having that tight end available. But, they might need an offensive line. Will Levis is getting absolutely destroyed out there. There's a lot of different areas and holes they're going to need to fill. If they do take Brock Bowers, I don't love the spot for him because, I think there's a lot of other spots. Maybe he goes to Chicago, or maybe he goes to these places that I think that he could be a better fantasy asset there. Tennessee is in such a flux that I'd be concerned about his overall short-term value, probably not long-term, but short-term value. But Brock Bowers, again, this is a super flex tight end premium draft. So this is where we're looking at probably his floor and ceilings at 105. I haven't seen him go any lower than this, to be honest. But that's probably where we're looking at for Brock Bowers. 106, what could go wrong with the Raiders drafting an LSU quarterback, right? The Jamarcus Russells, we're not worried about that no more. We got Jaden Daniels here. A little bit of a different body type there between the two guys. 106 is probably the highest I've seen him go. If he was only, again, we have Williams, May, and Daniels are the only first-round quarterbacks taken in this mock. in the first round. So sitting at the 106, you need a QB. You like his rushing upside. Raiders going to be building around new offense more than likely. Don't hate the pick. I just think it's interesting. I think Jane Deon is one of those guys. It's going to be a lot of fun kind of debating him as we go forward. Rome Odunze at the 107, wide receiver for the New York Giants. A lot of fun here in terms of what he could be coming in as that wide receiver one. I think he's going to be debated really, really heavily this offseason. I'm already seeing bust tweets out there, which is ridiculous because it's December. We need to calm down. But I think it's an interesting fit. I mean, if Giants can figure out their quarterback position, Rome comes in kind of as the guy, that wide receiver one. We're always looking for targets. I think that it's not a bad fit for both of these sides. 108 is Keon Coleman. It's giving me Quentin Johnson vibes. I'm not going to lie. Now, I'm not all the way out on Quentin Johnson, but just drafting a guy because he's paired with a good quarterback with Josh Allen, right? Keon Coleman does have his question marks, I think, as a receiver. I'm worried about his overall, his overall body of work. I think I struggle with Keon Coleman a little bit. 108 is probably a little early for me, but I love him on the Bills, right? But does he come in there? What does Diggs look like? Is Kincaid really the wide receiver too? I think there's going to be some flux in that offense. So it's kind of an interesting area. And again, Keon, Rome Odunze, those guys are going to be really, really hotly debated. At 109, we have Brian Thomas Jr. And if you haven't been updated on kind of the college football scene because you don't really watch college football, that's all right. That's why we're here. Brian Thomas Jr. is the second leading wide receiver for the LSU Tigers, right behind Malik Neighbors, and he's really popped off. He's someone that I highlighted preseason. I said, hey, this guy he could be set up. Jaden Daniels definitely elevated his game. Getting drafted by the Eagles is an interesting mark in the first round. I don't think they take a first-round wide receiver with AJ and Devonta there, but maybe they think that offense needs another piece. Interesting fit. I don't see a lot of fantasy production coming from that spot based on the third wide receiver in that offense, especially because I do think they attack the running back position as well in this draft. But 109, Brian Thomas Jr. is a name to kind of know. Emeka Egbuka going at the second round, first pick to the Panthers. So here we go. Bryce Young gets his wide receiver one. Now, again, we don't know if Mecca's coming out for sure. That's one of those things that we're just going to have to wait and see. But if he does, would you feel comfortable sitting at the 110? Give me a little Chris Olave vibes a little bit, right? With Bryce Young, kind of have that connection. I think it'd be a great pick for the Panthers because I do think he fits what they need. They're going to have to get some other help on the outside, but Emeka could come in and be that wide receiver one for this team. 111, we got Troy Franklin. I love this spot for my guy, Troy Franklin, for the Dallas Cowboys. I do think that Franklin can play on the outside, which would benefit CeeDee Lamb well playing in the slot. I think paired with Dak Prescott in this offense and that deep threat that they really, really need in this offense. I know Brandon Cooks has looked good and those things, but Troy Franklin is a different kind of level of athlete. I know there's some guys out there that don't like Troy Franklin. I know Draft Network and some of these other guys don't see him as being anything more ceiling wide receiver too, which in fantasy, that's okay. I think at the 111, you'd be pretty happy with that as a contender, grabbing Troy Franklin. 112 is an interesting one. Bo Nix got drafted by the Falcons in the second round. There's two other quarterbacks that get drafted in the second round. It's J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix Jr. But Bo Nix finds himself at the 112. Interesting kind of if the Falcons whiff on the quarterback position again, do they take a shot on Bo Nix, who you can see is productive, right, in college, and then you put him with Pitts and you got him with Bijan and Drake London? That would be an interesting spot. And would you be willing to move up or take him at the 112 if you're a QB needy team? And I think that's the question. Put in the comments, what do you think about Bo Nix being in this offense? All right, let's jump over to the second round. So we got Travion Henderson to the Cardinals in the third round. So that's the other thing to note. No running backs are drafted in the first round of this mock. I think that's something that you're going to notice all offseason until the draft, till we know landing spots in capital. I took Travion at the 102, or the 201, excuse me, but I wanted Xavier Worthy too. So I was back and forth on both those guys. So Henderson goes to the Cardinals in the third round. There was no running back taken in the first two rounds in the mock. Xavier Worthy, the Colts. J.J. McCarthy goes to the Giants in the second. Michael Penix Jr. I think those are two very plausible landing spots for both those quarterbacks if McCarthy comes out. Bucky Irving going to Houston, that fits their offense perfectly. I would love Bucky Irving to go to Houston. I think that's something to kind of note. Trey Benson going to Green Bay. A.D. Mitchell going to the Bengals. Xavier Leggett going to Houston. Ladd McConkey is just a Patriot. He's going there. 210 Cowboys for Blake Corum, which I think is a fun spot. I think if it's needs for both sides, I think for Corum, he can kind of be that inside guy. Definitely getting those in between the tackles runs and kind of be like just that glue guy. Cowboys definitely need somebody when Tony Pollard moves on this year. And even if they don't, I think they are good a 1-2 punch there. Malachi Corley from going to the Bears, and then Devontae Walker, I think, is going to be one of those prospects that some people are going to like, some people are not. Going to the Jaguars, who probably in the market for a wide receiver, especially if they move on from Ridley. We talked about on the Football Guys Dynasty show about that, the scenarios why Ridley would be kind of let go, why they wouldn't want to necessarily bring him back. It depends on like what they have to give back to the Falcons in terms of draft capital. So that's the second round there. Some guys to highlight. Adonai Mitchell, so you'll see the PFF numbers there, 75.1 receiving grade, one drop on the year, that is it. Wide percentage, he's really not wide guy, and 16.3 ADOT, one of the best ADOTs in college football. Him with the Bengals is an interesting spot. This is probably assuming T. Higgins moves on. So if they don't franchise T. Higgins, which I think they're probably going to do, this would be fun for Mitchell because he kind of fits the need, right? He kind of fits a T. Higgins light. Now, he's not T. Higgins. I'm not saying that, but he could fit that, hey, Joe Burrow, Higgins area, right? And get rid of Higgins. Now you have Chase and Mitchell on the outside. I think it'd be a fun fit. I think that if he did go here, I'd have a hard time seeing him going. I think him and Brian Thomas would be flipped. So Brian Thomas went 109 in the first round. I have a hard time seeing an 80 Mitchell not going at the 109 by the time rookie drafts come along. The next guy I want to talk about, we're going to stay in Texas there, is Xavier Worthy. Now, he went to the Colts. I think that's a sneaky spot. I know Josh Downs is there. I understand kind of that. Michael Pittman, those guys, but I do think they want to build weapons. I think when you're looking at Devonta Smith and what he's done for the Eagles, I know the Colts want that. And I think Steichen is one of those guys that's looking at that and seeing, like, hey, if we can get Xavier Worthy the ball in space, I think that's something that Anthony Richardson excels at. You've seen that in college. The first read in these offenses are important. Michael Pittman's kind of taking that role, but Worthy can help him there. I would love this spot for them. I think the big thing for us is drops for Worthy. He's got to fix those. I don't know if he comes out. I know there's kind of back and forth between draft circles and whether or not he's going to come back or not, but 9.9 ADOT is not necessarily representative of what he can do just because they get him out in a lot of wide receiver screens, quick outs, those type of things. He can be a deep threat. If he works on his hands, we're talking about a legitimate weapon in the NFL. Next round is the third round. We got Ray Davis for Baltimore, Jatavian Sanders there, Washington, Braylon Allen to the Eagles, which I think is an interesting one there at the 303. We're going to highlight him, so I'm not going to talk too much, but that was a fourth round pick by the Eagles there. Marshawn Lloyd to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Jalen McMillan to the Browns, Johnny Wilson to the Broncos, Will Shipley to the Saints, Jalen Polk to the Baltimore Ravens, Cade Stover to the Chargers, Jaheim Bell to the San Francisco 49ers, Brendan Rice to the Jaguars, and then Spencer Rattler over there. We got Rattler in this one to the Steelers. As far as like the highlight here, Braylon Allen to the Eagles would be smash. I think Braylon Allen, for some people, are running back one in the class. Some people don't like Braylon Allen at all, right? So you're really back and forth on like who you think is the best running back of this class. He's probably going to get higher draft capital than what people think. I think that in the third round, in terms of rookie drafts, he's going to be at least a second round pick. Some people have him the first round pick. I mean, I saw a mock where he's at 106, right? So he's all across the board. Based on the numbers, he did improve this year. He was one of my fallers at the early part of the year, but he did bounce back. He had 682 yards after contact, 49 missed tackles forced, 24 explosive runs, 99.2 elusive rating. I think the thing with him is he finds himself in the Eagles, a downhill runner. They don't bring back Swift. They get rid of the tush push. Now we're looking at Braylon Allen just scoring touchdowns, right? And I think that's the offense that you want to find Braylon Allen in. An offense like the Eagles, an offense that's going to just go downhill, has a good offensive line, and it's going to allow him just to rumble and tumble because he's not an elusive guy. He's not a guy that's going to make guys miss, but he can just kind of score, get his head down, break tackles. That's what you're looking at with Braylon Allen. So that's the 3-round mock that we have here with landing spots. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a fun practice. Now, some guys that weren't in the mock that should have probably been is Devin Neal from Kansas was out there. A lot of wide receivers, Jace McClellan, Kendall Milton, also running backs there. There's a lot of wide receivers out there that definitely probably will definitely, fill in as we move forward and as we kind of talk about them. But that's the mock. Let us know what you think. Let us know, hey, what landing spots did you hate? What landing spots did you love? Why is Troy Franklin to the Cowboys need to happen, right? Or to the Chiefs? Give me a Troy Franklin on a roster that I can really love. So appreciate you guys. I'll check you guys on our next video.